No news today, so let's get straight into the data. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Looking at the Fear and Greed Index, you can see we're at a 24 today. Previous was a 23 a week ago at 16, so we've actually moved up just slightly. Still flat in extreme fear, definitely an interesting time. Momentum, flat here. Still in fear. Strength continues to taper down into fear. And then breadth, extreme fear here as well. Put call ratio very elevated around 0.87, extreme fear there as well. And then VIX saw a slight step up today. And then bonds did not move at all, extreme fear pretty much across the board. Quick look at seasonality here. You can see the 12th right here, slightly down, sideways choppy action, really from here all the way up until about the 22nd. And even on your non-election years here, you can see slight bottom, basically flat all the way until the 22nd. Slight rally, slight dip, but flat action. And recognize this is below the zero line here for your typical year, which is quite bearish, which is what we are getting right now. Moving over to the economic calendar, federal budget came in just a little bit less negative than expected. Still very negative though. 1 year inflation, 3%, same as the previous. For tomorrow here, we do have PPI. It is expected to be a slight step up. Hopefully that comes in a little bit light. And then looking at Wednesday here, we have CPI. First thing in the morning, so anything you hold into the close is going to get affected by that CPI data on Wednesday. And then when it does not slow down with core retail sales here on Thursday. Moving over to Max Pain, it's all the way up at 535 here for the SPY, stock price 533, so about a 0.5% higher. Total options 2.9, put call ratio jumped here to 2.98. Lots of options, lots of puts, and it does make sense that we are going to hold these gains here, maybe even rally up a little bit to for 540. 535 makes sense between these two levels. Really, if we could get to 540 to 550, that could be interesting. So overall, Max Pain does look a little bit bullish to me. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps here on the hourly chart, you can see sideways choppy action, tested that 200. We're going flat here. You can see these EMAs and SMAs have almost gone all the way flat. I would argue we're probably going to reject at least a little bit from this 200, maybe come down to that 55 and hold that down at 528. We'll see if that zone holds or not. If it breaks 527.35 and then below that, we can start to see a change in structure. The low here from Friday would be that low. If we took that out here, then we would have a lower low, and then we could see some trending price action to the downside. Right now, it's still hanging out in there, so nothing changing on the day. You can see the daily chart was positive 0.05, got above that 9 EMA pretty well. Momentum on the daily chart continues to swing to bullish. RSI still bullish there, so this still looks good up to that next trend line on the daily chart, which is up at 539, maybe even to that 21 at 542. And then moving over to that 4-hour chart, you can see we're getting very close to that ATR resistance at 538.26, right in the zone. You also have the 89 EMA sitting there at 537.07, so definitely some resistance in here. Momentum starting to fade a little bit, no volume over the last 2 days. And then looking at that hourly chart, you can see low, higher low setup. We're still grinding price action. ATRs are basically flat. Momentum slightly bearish. So still bullish conditions on the hourly chart, but definitely hesitant. Could break in either direction from here in my opinion. Moving over to the NASDAQ, a very similar thesis, hitting that 21 EMA here on the hourly chart. You can see definitely a zone of resistance, tested it, rejected, sideways action. The EMAs are still flattening out just like the SPY, and you can see 450.40 is the level, tested that multiple times, held it. If we can get a break above 454.40, maybe we see a push up to that 461.50 area. We're still inside this structure, grinding price action, holding that 21 EMA. As long as that holds, we're in good shape, and you can see the doji 0.22 on the day, looking for a push up to that 21 EMA up at 463.67. But right now that 200 here on the hourly chart is your short-term resistance. And then moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see this downward trend hitting that ATR resistance, which is at 453.69, right there in the same zone as the 200, as well as that 55 EMA there at 452.33. And now we're rejecting a little bit from there, momentum selling off. Again, basically no volume on the day. And then looking at it here on the hourly chart, again, you can see that sideways choppy action. We do have bullish conditions here on the hourly chart, but if this starts to roll, we're going to take out that pretty quickly. ATR support is 447. 90. And then if that zone breaks, we're probably going to see a roll down at least to that lowest ATR band, which is 445.68, or about a percent and a half lower from current price. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, both of these were negative. Russell was down 0.9, held that 144 EMA there at 203.59. Momentum still rolling to bullish, RSI rolling down a little bit more bearish. After hours up about 6 cents, still in this consolidation, nothing crazy. And then looking at the Dow, similar thesis, 0.35, held the level 392.44. As long as that holds, we're in good shape, and you can see we're up just a smidgen after hours, bouncing from that level. And if it holds, again, 398.76 is the price target. Moving over to the Mag 7, positive 0.02 on the day, nothing crazy. Momentum continues to roll to bullish, RSI continues to look bullish. Let's go ahead and look at this on the hourly chart here. So not quite the same thesis as everything else. We are above all the EMAs and SMAs, at least we were for some point during the day. And then you can see we did start to chop on top of that 9 and 21, but we are holding the 200, which is at 253.07. As long as that holds, we should be in good shape. Doesn't mean we can't pull back and test it a little bit, but we definitely did that today, and so far it's held up. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, we got Apple up 0.6, Microsoft 0.19. So momentum continues to hold, RSI continues to hold. Both of these look short-term bullish, but that's a critical zone there for Apple, 220.01. And then you got the trend just behind it there around 221.22. So interesting zone. We're going to see if it rejects. This is also the previous low before we saw a slight bounce. If it rejects from here, that's going to be terrible. But if it can break out, hold, and push, certainly a possibility as well. And then looking at Microsoft, pretty abysmal showing, 0.19. Definitely not nearly as strong as Apple there. As long as it can hold the 200, that's decent at 405.96. It's been chopping in that zone for a while. Momentum and RSI still good. 413.36 is the level as long as that 200 holds. And then maybe up to the 21 EMA there at 423.20. But this looks not nearly as good as Apple. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA, Tesla held up okay, 1.25% to the downside. Still in this consolidation, right at the level 197.75. Did close below it just by a few pennies, but it's right on top of it. Could certainly be patient, wait for a break back above, and then look for a push if it's going to get it. This is consolidation here, no clear direction yet, and you could certainly argue that it looks a little bit bearish. And then looking at NVIDIA, much better showing on the day, 4% to the upside. Almost touched VWAP at 111.21, and then 21 EMA still sitting there at 112.80, which is still about $3 higher from here, which would be a pretty solid move. Momentum and RSI both bullish. Looking at Meta and Amazon, you can see Meta was down 0.35. Still think it looks good. Momentum and RSI still bullish. Want to see it push and break, potentially up to these previous highs there around 544. And then looking at Amazon, terrible, 0.08. This still looks terrible. Looks like a retrace, looks like a rejection. It's below all the EMAs and SMAs. Still expect that to break lower at some point, and you can see it's selling just a little bit after hours. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you can see these look pretty terrible. 0.15 to the downside, 0.4 to the downside on discretionaries. Staples still looks like this uptrend, just really choppy price action, slowly getting up to that zone there around the 79.90 level. And then you can see discretionaries fell from the level, selling off, down more after hours. Looks like this is going to push at least to the 170.68 area. Momentum is stepping to bullish, but RSI rejecting off that SMA. Seems like it's got at least a little bit more bearishness in it. Moving over to oil and gas and transports, oil and gas jumping aggressively, 1.36, down just a smidgen after hours, but I think this is going to 140.88 or another $2 higher from here. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, and then looking at transports, it looked pretty good, and now we've had 2 down days. If we get another step down tomorrow, that could be a resumption of the downtrend. Pretty interesting to see these moving in different directions. Usually they're based on economic factors, but I think oil is getting driven by tensions in the Middle East right now, which should send this at least a little bit higher, whereas transport's probably going to roll down. If this 63.22 breaks, the next trend is all the way down at 62.44. Moving over to oil and gold, powerful day for oil, up over 4%, still headed towards that 80.97 level. Really strong move, stronger than I would have guessed. Pushed through all these EMAs and SMAs, makes sense that it had to push through there. And then you can see trend resistance up at 81.88, or tomorrow it would be 81.75. So it looks like we're going to push a little bit more. Right now it's kind of hovering. And then looking at gold, did exactly what we thought it was going to do. Pushed to these previous highs around 228.50 or so. It's up a little bit more after hours. This breaks out here tomorrow. Gold could have some legs over the medium term, even a couple of more days of push potentially. Moving over to breadth, 20 and 50-day breadth here, both rolling down. 20, we kind of expected that. 21 EMA there, rolled down aggressive. 3660 is the level. We talked about 2821 being the next level of potential support if this starts to break down, and you can see that RSI rejecting off the SMA. Does not look super good there. 50-day breadth, similar thesis. We thought this might push to 62.25 before breaking down, but now we got an engulf candle, probably going to push to this previous low, if not a little bit lower. If it's going to resume pushing to the downside, it's going to do it tomorrow. So something to be watching here. Market breadth definitely fading. Moving over to the dollar, you can see sideways consolidation, 200 SMA grinding lower, looking like resistance. As this goes lower, price is going a little bit lower. Got the 144 there at 103.06 as a potential support, but looking at this daily chart certainly does not look great here. You can see this continuing downtrend, 3 days of up move, big wicks on those up moves, down candle Friday, down candle today, and this looks like it's set to accelerate. Obviously, it's going to be driven by PPI and CPI, but to me, it feels like there's a little bit more downside here in the dollar. Moving over to JNK and TLT, JNK basically flat, still in the same consolidation, nothing crazy happening there. And then TLT up a little bit, 0.36. It's back above 96.50, so if we get a continuation here, that could see a push up to that 98.86 area. Again, this is going to be heavily dependent on the inflation data over the next 2 days, but it seems like it is set for a rally. Moving over to volatility, move index jumped quite a bit, and then we got VIX here. So the VIX did basically what we thought it was going to do. Threw a big wick to this zone, bounced from that area, and now we have to see what happens. Is this the wick rejection, and we're going to get that reacceleration back to the upside on the VIX? And to the downside for markets, certainly seems like a big possibility. Even if we extend these out, you can see there is just a ton of trend lines here. Certainly could just be an initial test and a push through. Momentum says it could be, but for me, it seems like we're going to catch a bounce here. This was a zone of a ton of support, 21 EMA sitting there as well. Tested all of those levels, caught a bounce. We'll see what happens here tomorrow. Moving over to my accounts, I didn't do anything with my positions. I just held everything out to expiration and then rolled out to the next day. So you can see 203 for tomorrow. I did decide to roll down on the IWM, just felt a little bit hesitant, wanted a little bit bigger credit. So this max profit gives me 205.22, which gives me about 75 cents potential profit for tomorrow. It was down about 1%, and I think we could see a little bit more down move. If we see a rally, I can always roll out to the next day. And then looking at the Qs, similarly held that same position, 449 for tomorrow for $3.76 credit. You can see that's in a little bit of a loser now. Markets bounced a little bit from when I sold it, but not a whole lot. Max profit there would be 452.76. So again, a couple of dollars profit potential there, with some decent protection if we reject off of that 200 SMA. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the markets right now. Are we going to reject off of that 200 SMA on the hourly chart, or are we going to reaccelerate to the upside off the back of this PPI and CPI data? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.